little bit about rotation, which is one of the most powerful features in the radio product, but also the least understood, I think, by a lot of people until they use it. So to access this is done through the database client, like pretty much everything else that has to do with scheduling or changing things that are stored in the server database. So on your server, you've got a schedule. And the schedule has a bunch of playlists, and those playlists essentially run in order unless you've scheduled them for a specific time. So I'm just going to pick a playlist that I know has some rotation in it. And here's what rotation is. So if you're in terrestrial radio, there's typically software that you use that you record essentially a list of things to play for about 2 weeks, and you load it into your automation system. And that software does some neat things for you because there are rules to broadcast on the air that you can't repeat the same thing at the same time every day. You can't play more than a few songs by the same artist within a certain number of hours. And that's all done for you, and then they'll actually mix in, there's another piece of software that'll mix in your commercials, and you get a big schedule that essentially runs for some period of time. Well, we do this a little differently. We're doing that same function, which is allow you to mix commercials and music, play things according to an order you want, and also make sure you don't repeat things, but we just allow you to set up playlists that have a set of rules, which we call rotation playlists, or rotation items in a playlist. And then software on the server, every time that playlist is going to be scheduled or go to air, basically that software will go and reload those playlists with tracks that work. So I'm looking at a playlist from a station called KXCY. It's actually a clone of the station, so we can do whatever we want with it. And they're Oklahoma State University Radio. And you notice they've defined types in their database, so there's a lot of types here. There's essentially, about over a dozen of them. And in each slot, they've defined a type. And then at some point down here, they actually have some commercials defined, and these are just files. So every place where in the first column it says rotation, whatever the type is will get filled in by the software automatically to play something you haven't played within a few hours. So every time we'd reload this playlist after it would run, it would look different, but it would still have the same format. So you can say, I want to play 3 new songs in a row, and I want to do station IDs. At some point, so my station has some personality. I'm going to play another song, an ID. I'm going to play a different type of music, etc. And something this station does that's kind of cool is they created a type called new, and the music director uploads new tracks into their database once a month or once a week or whatever, and then classifies them as new. They'll automatically get played in these slots. And they do have paying advertisers for their station, so those 4 commercials are fixed items. They're not done by rotation, so they know they play them specifically, and those play once an hour. And all their playlists are a little bit of a variation of that. They have 3 of them, and you have some other stuff in there as well. So that is the story with rotation. And these playlists can be either scheduled to just float in the schedule, which means that I'm going to change these all to floaters. Okay, and now these will play in some order, and it gives you an approximate time when they're going to run. If I make it a fixed time, I can set it for tomorrow at noon, and I've now scheduled that guy to play tomorrow at noon, and that means I can set up a rotation playlist to play a specific type of music at a specific time. For example, I wanted to do a jazz hour at 9 o'clock every night. I could set that up, and yet use this power of rotation to make it fill in with what you want. So there's one other interesting thing about rotation, and that is we have the ability to pick the newest item of a certain type. So this is very good if you're doing PSAs, or if you have somebody's recorded show, not necessarily music, and you want to play that person's last show that they uploaded to the database in a playlist. You can do that. So it's great for news. It's great for things that have to be topical. Not so great for music because you'll always play the newest track of a certain type. But if, let's say you wanted to premiere a certain band and play it once an hour, that track, or once every few hours, you could do that with this feature. So that's the power rotation. So any questions on this? And I'd be happy to answer.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I don't. Well, actually, let's see. So as far as how do you create? So you create a playlist and then you
Let's do
define it.
that.
Okay.
Let's just go do
I
that.
think,
That's a
yeah.
good idea. Let's go do that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start out with a blank playlist, and I'm going to keep it with a station ID. I would go to this rotation pull-down menu on the left-hand side of the playlist window, and whatever type I chose next would appear in that slot.
Oh, so it's basically a template.
Yeah, it's basically
You're creating the template. You're creating a template. You save it, and then when it's played, it inserts the actual title, artist, all of that. Okay.
Exactly. So what would happen here is I could put in whatever types I wanted, and I could fill those out, and then I could move them around. I say, wow, I really want to put like an indie track second, and then I want to mix some indies and news, and that's what would play. Now you notice these say nothing, as you said, it's a template, right? It just says title, artist. They're basically just blank at this point. But if we put this playlist into schedule, and we'll just have it be a floater, and we'll call it Rotation 4. We're going to save it. It's going to go. I'm going to clear some stuff out here. We're going to put it into our schedule. It's going to appear at some point. It's right now the server is off figuring out what it should play and looking at the rest of the schedule. And there's Rotation 4. So now if I pop that up, I should see is the wonders of a live demo. Right, there it is. Okay.
Uh-huh.
It's all these tracks are filled in. So, if there's an ID, the KXCY Haiku, I've got an indie track, I've got some new tracks, and mixed in with indie, just what I suggested. But when this plays to air, the next time it plays, it loads. So the only minimum standard for having rotation playlists in your schedule is that you have to have one other playlist in your schedule. And the idea being that while a playlist is on the air, we can't change it. So if you only had one rotation playlist in your schedule, it would never change because we can't change it while it's constantly on the air. So while the other one is on the air or the other of many is on the air, this playlist can get reloaded by the software. You saw that's pretty quick to do. It took us less than about 30 seconds for it to load. It's probably even quicker on the server side if it's going air. So it's really only a few seconds, but it needs to be off the air. And that is the story of rotation.